Okay, let's dive into this. We all make promises every single day, right? I'll pay you back tomorrow. Yep, it's a deal. But what actually happens when someone breaks that promise? You might think every agreement is a solid contract, but, the law sees it very differently. So let's figure out where that line is between just a casual promise and one that's actually legally binding. So let me ask you this. Think about all the agreements you make. You agree to buy a used textbook from a classmate, you click I agree on some new app, you promise to cover a friend's dinner. Are all of those legally binding contracts? The answer might actually surprise you, and it all comes down to one crucial little factor. And the answer, surprisingly, is no. Not every agreement holds up in court. For a promise to actually become a real contract, the people making it have to have what the law calls capacity. Think of it like the essential ingredient that makes the whole thing legally real. So what exactly is contractual capacity? Well, you can think of it as the law's way of asking, hey, did this person truly understand what they were getting into? It's the legal green light to form a contract. It means you have to be able to comprehend the deal you're making and what could happen because of it. Without that basic understanding, the whole agreement is built on shaky ground. Now, to protect people from getting into some really unfair deals, the law specifically calls out 3 groups that are generally considered to lack this capacity. We're talking about minors, individuals with certain mental disabilities, and people who are intoxicated. Let's break down why each of these groups is treated a little differently. First up, minors. You might think a teenager making a deal is no big thing, but in the world of contract law, age is a supercritical factor that can make an entire agreement just fall apart. The whole idea here is protection, plain and simple. The law just assumes that, say, a 16-year-old signing a 2-year phone contract might not really get the full financial picture long term, so this rule acts like a shield, letting them back out of agreements that could take advantage of their inexperience. All right, next, let's talk about mental incapacity. And this is a really important point. This has nothing to do with how smart someone is or their IQ. It's all about their cognitive ability to understand the specific agreement at the very moment it's being made. This is where the law draws a really clear line in the sand. If a person, even with a mental disability, can fully understand the nature and the terms of the agreement, then it's usually binding. But if their condition makes it impossible for them to get what the deal is about or what might happen because of it, the contract becomes voidable. That basically gives them the power to say, nope, I'm canceling this. And that brings us to our third and final category, the intoxication factor. This is a fascinating area because we're talking about a temporary state of mind that can have some very permanent legal consequences. So how does this actually play out? Well, the key here is the level of intoxication. We're not talking about just having a drink or two. For this to count, the person has to be so impaired that they genuinely cannot understand the agreement they're making. Only then does the law step in and say, okay, this contract is voidable, giving them an exit ramp once they've sobered up. So whether we're talking about a minor, someone with a cognitive disability, or a person who is severely intoxicated, there's this one powerful idea that ties them all together, and that's the legal principle of protection. It's so important to see this the right way. This isn't some loophole for people to get out of a bad deal they regret later. The law of capacity is a shield. It's designed specifically to protect vulnerable people from being locked into agreements they just couldn't possibly understand. That's it. 3 very different groups, all sheltered under one single vital legal principle. So the key takeaway here is pretty simple. For minors, it all comes down to a lack of life experience. For those with a mental disability, it's about an inability to understand the terms. And for intoxicated people, it's a temporary lack of comprehension. For each one, the law provides a way out. And this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. We see how important this legal shield is, but how does the law strike the right balance? How does it protect the vulnerable without totally undermining the basic idea of personal responsibility that makes contracts work in the first place? It's a delicate dance, and it sits right at the very heart of contract law.